Welcome to the Side Action Podcast, the sports gambling show that covers everything in the world of sports betting from A through Z. We'll cover the four major sports, as well as anything and everything in between worth some action, and will increase the size of your bankroll. And here we go.
All right, welcome to the Side Action, episode 12 of season 5. My name is Jim Weglars, aka Wegs. You can follow me at Twitter and on Instagram.
And I'm Steve Roberts, aka Action. You can follow me on Twitter at 31sroberts.
Follow the podcast at Side Action Pod on Twitter and Side Action Podcast on Instagram. So Action, Thursday weekend. I don't know if you had a long weekend. I did. So did you do anything fun besides bundle up inside as it got really cold in the upper Midwest?
No, not really. I had to work Veterans Day and really most of the weekend as well. So not super fun, but we did just kind of lay low, watch some football, got in the boat, put into winter storage. So that was a relieving activity for sure. How about you?
As you know, took it easy for once. I did work out forever.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. It was kind of an interesting take on the storyline. Spoilers here, but and as you know, I'm not an Amway business owner, but I went to an event, bought some vitamins.
Nice.
Friend. So
can't go wrong with vitamins.
Can't go wrong. Played a little volleyball, and then Sunday did watch the games of the Four Shadows. You know, got to show my face around there. I haven't been there in a minute, so it was nice to get there on Sunday. And a buddy of mine came over Sunday night. He's in the guy who ran the marathon. He was from out of town, so I stayed over.
Cool.
But yeah, just, kind of working really hard. So looking forward to having a better weekend at the, I actually won some bets on Sunday, but then of course went back in and lost some money back. So tried to get on that Bills money line when they went down in that game, and then, didn't work out for me. Well, that's a little.
Yeah, I had a large teaser on the Bills that obviously did not work out either. We can touch on that later. Josh Allen.
That's right. Thanks, Josh Allen, for nothing. So let's go over the weekend as we kind of roll right in. We'll go into injuries first. A few, significant injuries, and I haven't looked at the practice reports today, actually. Zach Ertz for Arizona is out for the year with a knee injury. Kyler Murray, missed the game last week, was a big part of the handicap. Colt McCoy stepped in. He did very well. I guess we probably won't talk about that, but more importantly, Colt McCoy's on the injury report too. So I don't know who's going to start this team. So we got to make sure we check that out in that game. And then Matthew Stafford, as we alluded to last week, had a concussion, so he's still questionable. Not sure if he's going to play, and Walford didn't really play that great in his stead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not sure about the Arizona quarterback. That's going to be an interesting thing to monitor, and because that game's on Monday night, not a ton of injury information right now. We'll have to wait till Friday, Saturday really to get some clarity.
For sure. And then I also noted, and we can kind of double check this, but there were a lot of Chargers injuries that I know one of them was going into the game. Austin Johnson, he ended up going on IR, MCL injuries, a nose tackle. But I also saw two other defensive linemen, and I'm not sure where they are in the rotation, but Ogbania, probably, defensive tackle, he's on IR with a kneecap issue. Christian Covington, a defensive end, he's on IR with a pectoral issue. So the Chargers are getting riddled with injuries on that defensive front.
Yeah, I mean, just stack them up. The Chargers are one team in the league that just consistently have injury, not only this season, but year after year, and really have to wonder what's going on in the training room there in LA.
Right. And of course, I didn't put down the guy's team name on Marlon Tuipulotu, a defensive tackle, undisclosed injury. Who's that? I think that was the Eagles, right? I think that's the
Eagles' defensive line is really starting to pick up some injuries too. I think the big run stopper is going to be out again this week, and you saw the Commanders put some yards up on the ground on Monday night, and I have an expectation that the Colts with Jonathan Taylor back might be able to have some similar success.
Well, I'll jump ahead to the news part of it that the Eagles did sign Ndamukong Suh, who probably is the one to shore up this defense in the middle. I mean, he's still a little older now, but he's been impactful when he's been able to go to certain teams, especially late in the season. And so, he'll be a difference maker in the short run.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, who knows what sort of form or shape he's in, but we'll find out on Sunday if he gets out on the field.
The last one I noted was Tennessee is missing Bud Dupree, their best pass rusher. with a hip injury, so he's already ruled out for this game. And they're playing obviously tonight against the Packers.
Mm-hmm. And then one more late breaking news here. I'm sure you saw that the Buffalo Bills and Browns game has been relocated to here in Detroit because of the 3-foot snowstorm that's expected between now and Sunday.
Yeah, thunder snow. But yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to that game, because we had a good question from Night Ranger, who can't make it on the podcast. Nobody's excited to see this guy. I guess he photobombed me once in Vegas, but other than that, we haven't seen his face. But he did have a ticket. We'll talk about on the total on that one, so we'll see how that works. Let's go over the game specifically, action from last week. We still had a kind of a mixed week, not fantastic, but we did hit the Steelers. The Steelers were 1.5-point favorites in the contest. They actually closed as the favorite in this game against the Saints. They won easily. This game, they were up 10-0 early. The Saints did tie it at halftime, but then the Steelers did win fairly easily, 20-10. T.J. Watt was good, and then Pickett had a rushing touchdown, and also Pickens ended up having a rushing touchdown in this one. But I like those rookies on offense.
Yeah, I mean, pretty boring game, I would say. I wouldn't say that the Steelers made it look easy by any stretch. They were up 10-0, and then I think the Saints came back to tie it up, and then ultimately the Steelers pulled away. But I think it was T.J. Watt was the center of our handicap there, and getting him back on that defensive line is going to make a world of difference for the Steelers.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game because they play Cincinnati this week, a big game for them. We were on the Browns. We kind of flipped. On the podcast, we were talking about Dolphins. We were 3.5-point favorites at home. Went on the Browns. We flipped to the Browns. Looked pretty good. Open touchdown. They were hanging with them, but the Miami offense just churning along, and they won fairly easily, 39-17. One of these was a defensive score, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a little bit, a little bit more balanced in Miami's way. Can anybody stop this Miami offense?
Well, certainly not the Browns. I mean, that defensive performance was pitiful. Almost 500 yards of offense and 7.3 yards per play for the Dolphins.
Yes.
Just seemed like they got anything they wanted all game. And on the flip side, I was kind of disappointed in the Browns rushing attack, only 112 yards on the ground. Yep. And didn't really get the ball to Chubb as much as I expected. He had one uncharacteristic fumble, which I think kind of soured the run game a little bit and really just turned this thing into a Miami runaway.
Right. I know I saw John Watson practicing this week. I'm not sure if he's playing this week. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I think I read that he's due back in week 13. And he will face off against his former team in the Texans. I think it's the first or second weekend in December.
Revenge spot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we didn't go on this one. We kind of backed off. We'll call it Game of the Day Part 1. Vikings against the Bills. We kind of alluded to this game already. Interesting line movement during the week. It was Bills minus 3.5 in the contest because they thought it was going to be Keenum starting. Right around the time of the deadline for picks, the line shot up to 6.5 as soon as Josh Allen was going to play. The Vikings really were getting trounced early. I mean, this game it was 27-10, kind of, in the third quarter. But leave it to the Vikings. They stuck with it. Got a big run from Dalvin Cook, like an 8-yard run, like right after they got down 27-10. Scored another time late, and then the big drive when they got stuffed at the 1. But they tried to run a quarter. They were at the half-yard line. You saw this action. Half-yard line for the Bills after making the defensive stand. Try to do a quick, quarterback sneak to Allen. Usually it's pretty successful. Bad snap, ball in the end zone, touchdown Vikings, which gave them the lead. But then obviously the Bills scored in regulation to tie. That was about the time I hit the money line there for the Bills. Going to overtime, Vikes get the field goal. Bills are moving the ball with ease down the field, and I think they got a little complacent. Allen made a bad throw. I don't know where he was looking at. He trail technique, threw it right to the Minnesota defender, and the game was over, and they lose. This is I think it's the third or fourth straight game that the Bills have not scored a touchdown in the second half since the Chiefs game. So there's something wrong with this offense and the adjustments in the second half.
Yeah, and I mean, Josh Allen, that's 3 red zone turnovers now in the last 2 weeks too, which is just, you can't allow if you're expected to be the best team in the league and the Super Bowl contender. Right. The Bills looked good for the game, and I think the question mark that I have is defensively. Yeah. This team is the number one rated defense according to Football Outsiders, DVOA, and giving up almost 500 yards of offense to the Vikings, I think it's got to give me some question marks for this team and what they are defensively.
Well, and everybody in the world, they knew they were going to Justin Jefferson, and they still couldn't guard him. Yep. They had him double teamed, and they couldn't make plays. I mean, if you have an impactful receiver, you're going to throw the ball to him, and give Cousins credit, giving him balls to give that great one-handed catch is amazing. But even they had catch between bracket coverage, you made it. You've got to question, maybe when they get cornerback, Tre'Davious White, maybe he can do something, or maybe he's back. He's not 100%, but you're going to have some pretty tough, receivers to cover, Tyreek Hill included. At some point, you're going to have to figure out how to cover a guy and take a guy out of the play.
Yeah, definitely.
So we already mentioned we went with the Rams, unfortunately, who closed as 1.5-point favorites. They closed bigger than that, didn't they? I think maybe they closed as bigger favorites, 3-point favorites, so 1.5. Contest.
Yeah, it was 3.
And the Cardinals, of course, with the capable Colt McCoy, gets another win in relief. I think that's his 3rd win in the last couple of years in relief of Murray, 27-17. And the Rams are like the 3rd worst scoring offense in the league, dude. They're terrible.
Yeah. I mean, Walford was terrible on Sunday. It was not enjoyable to watch. And I mean, Colt McCoy is he's a covering machine, isn't he? Whenever he gets in there in relief, you just got to chalk them up for a victory because he seemingly never loses.
Is he taking over the Teddy Covers role?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's 3 games, I guess. It's hard to say that it's really a pretty small sample size.
McCover?
There you go. Okay. I like it.
Well, here's game of the day part 2. You had the Cowboys go to the Packers. Of course, we're on the Cowboys at -4.5. I think this even went up maybe at the closing line, right? It was 5 or something like that. So obviously the Packers were kind of limping in there and lost 5 in a row. The boys were beating them up 28-14, running all over them. But one thing they couldn't do, just kind of like the Justin Jefferson thing, they couldn't guard the rookie Christian Watson. The guy was going off. He had a big touchdown in the first half where he got man coverage and he beat him like a drum. In the second half, between running the ball, Jones had some good runs, and then just on man coverage crossers, they could not stop this Watson kid. He had 2 more touchdowns in the second half, and they pushed it to overtime, and then eventually won in overtime, 31-28. Give the Pack some credit for getting off the mat in this one, but I was really disappointed with the Cowboys defense.
Yeah, up. There's 2 out of 2, the best 2 defenses in the league that underperformed on Sunday, and we happened to be on the wrong side of both of them. I mean, it's clear that Rodgers has found some sort of connection with this Watson kid because he's had a couple drops early in the season, but right now he looks to have taken that Devontae Adams role and as the apple of Aaron Rodgers' eye. And so I expect that he's going to have another big game tonight. And, and it was really the pass rush. The Cowboys were not really generating the pressure on Rodgers that I would have expected in that game. And that was really questioning for me.
Yeah. I slipped this one in for your benefit, even though I know you probably bet on the Raiders, but the Colts were +4 at the Raiders, and our proxy was the battle of proxy versus host here, and thankfully the host won in this one. But Jeff Saturday, aka Jeff Sunday, goes to Matt Ryan, and they kind of won easily in this one. Actually, I mean the final score was 25-20, but they beat the hapless Raiders. The Raiders look like I don't know if they're tanking. I mean we talked about it last week. They're kind of jettisoning players and coaches. It's a weird time there. So, the Colts, are you back on the Colts now with Saturday at the helm?
I think so. It's more than just that because you've got the move back to Matt Ryan, I think has to be an upgrade. Mm-hmm. I probably figure that's 2.5, 3 points to go from Ellinger to Ryan based on what we've seen this season. And then now they're getting Jonathan Taylor back into the lineup. He's expected to play this weekend as well, and he's got to be one of the top 5 players in the league in terms of explosiveness. So I did bet on the Raiders last week, but I saw some late breaking news from one of the reporters that it looks like Matt Ryan was warming up, and so I jumped on the over real quick and mitigated there. More of a push on my part.
There you go. Yeah, because that number went down quickly, and so you got it before it jumped up. The last game was, that we did pick. We had the Commanders against the Eagles, and we were on the right side the whole way, right? I mean, early Eagles got a quick score, but for the most part, Washington shut down the running game, held them 94 yards rushing, and more importantly, like you had mentioned, they were running it right down the Eagles' throats, 4 or 5 yards every time, right up the gut. Robinson was doing it, Gibson was doing it, and then Heineke made enough throws. He kind of flopped one time, and you saw the flop. That was and they got the dreaded pitchy woo woo play at the end where they scored on the Eagles, and a lot of people got mad at that one, but they covered the 11 easily, and they won 32-21 in this one. So the Commanders quietly have won 4 or 5 games, and they're in the playoff.
It's pretty incredible, isn't it? Heineke has been the savior of this season for the Commanders football team. And I was down at MGM Sportsbook on Monday night watching the game, and there was a lot of Eagles bettors and fans in there, and there was a pretty loud uproar at the Heineke flop. I'll just say that.
I can only imagine. My boss, there were some people in town for my company, and it was a Monday night game. I was happy not to be with them during the game as I monitored the score, because those guys live and die with their teams, and of course they just missed out on the Phillies this year too. So, what are you gonna do? We'll see. They got another one. They got your Colts this week. We'll talk about that. As we've mentioned the last few weeks, it's kind of been evening out. Underdogs did take 8 and 6 this week, but the unders just split down the middle, 7 and 7, and just won against the spread that mattered. So it's about 15% on the year. So this week in Week 11, we've got the Bucs, Dolphins, Jags, and Seahawks on bye. So we still have 14 games. Tonight we've already talked about Titans are going to the Packers. It opened as 40.5 up to 41. It's right around that 3.5 in the contest. I don't know. I mean, obviously, we always say this. It's like, can you get this up? I can't get it uploaded fast enough for you to bet on this, but any leans in this game?
Yeah, I like the Packers tonight. I think this Tennessee team has gotten some really lucky victories throughout the season. Their numbers are just pitiful. They're still getting outgained by almost 0.8 yards per play on average, and I just don't think it's sustainable. And also coming on a short week here on the road, I think it's just a really tough spot for the Tennessee Titans coming into Green Bay, coupled with the fact that Rodgers has found something with Watson. And so I like the Packers tonight.
All right. I think I do too. I mean, 3.5 is not a great number, but I think you're right. At some point, the Titans' gravy train is going to stop. I mean, they ended up, obviously, they got beat a couple weeks ago against the Chiefs, but they've won like 5 out of 6 games or something, or 6 out of 7. So. All right, let's go to the real important game of this one. The Bears are going to the Falcons at the 1 o'clock window on Sunday. The Falcons open as a 2.5-point favorite, the 49-point total. It's 3 points now in the contest. It's tough. The Bears blew it. We didn't talk about that game. The Bears blew one as well to your Lions. They were up pretty big in that game. I think they were up 28-10 or something like that. Or is that right? 28-10? They were up big in the game. 24-10, and they end up losing the game, missing an extra point late. But we talked about it. The Bears can't stop anybody, but they're scoring on everybody. So, is there value to the Bears here with the points?
I don't know. I have a hard time finding myself trying to bet on the Bears. Justin Fields has been great, though. We talked about it a little bit last week, and I think the strides that he's made this season offensively have certainly been noteworthy.
Right.
But I have a really hard time betting on a defense this bad. And I guess you could make the argument that Atlanta has an equally bad defense, and by the numbers, they do. And I think that both offenses are going to find a ton of success on the ground, especially in this game, which kind of lends you to think that the total might be a play. But the running game obviously comes with a running clock too, and this number has certainly gone up a little bit from where it opened, 48 out to 49.5, almost 50 in some places, and I think that makes it a little more tough. If I can get a 48, I like the over. In terms of the side here, though, it's probably a pass for me.
Yeah, me too. I think the number's right in that down the middle, right? If they got 3.5, maybe I go to the Bears. Our little contest, we usually do the hooks. So, I do think the Bears, it's tough too, because with my season-long numbers, technically the Bears, because the offense has been so good lately, they're a little skewed because their defense was pretty good early in the year, and now it's terrible. I don't really like where Atlanta's going in terms of a trend, but I think there's going to be, rushing props. Anybody can run on this both ways. Anybody can run in this one, so go up on that. Let's go to the next game. We got the Rams against the Saints. So I'm not clear. I don't think Stafford's going to play. I'm not sure, though. We got to monitor that. Saints open as a 3-point favorite at home, 39-point total. It's pretty much the same in the contest. 3 for the Saints at home, 39-point total. I can only look to the Saints, and I don't like the Saints. They're garbage, but the Rams are just terrible. Maybe they turn it around. Maybe this is the week that they stop this downward slide, but they really haven't done anything for weeks. They played decent against the Bucs, but that was with Stafford. Of course, if this has got to be assuming Stafford's playing with this line, right?
Yeah. I think that's it. And I did hear today that Stafford's been practicing, and there's hearing some rumblings in the locker room and the local media that he's going to play this weekend. So I think that's exactly why you see this line where it is. And I believe once it's announced that it's probably going to be going down towards 3 and probably under 3.
Right.
So I do think, though, that Cooper Kupp is going to be out. We didn't mention that at the top, but just trying to pull up the injury report, I think that Kupp is going to be out, which obviously is going to be hugely impactful to the Rams offense.
Right.
What do you think? How do you think that plays into the handicap in this one?
Okay, so Stafford plays and no Kupp. So who do they throw to? Higbee? I mean, I don't know. It's
Allen Robinson?
Not running the football. I mean, that's the key. They're not running the ball. The Saints, I can't really trust the defense, but they've, for the most part, played pretty good at home. I mean, I think that's traditionally what they do. And so there's got to be value on the Saints, right?
I don't know. I think I like the Rams, to be honest with you. The Saints are so bad. And Dalton is confirmed to be playing quarterback again. And
God.
I just don't think that's the right choice.
Right.
Offensively, they're not any good either. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to run the ball in that Rams defense. And Dalton in the passing game has been equally bad.
Yeah,
so
let's stay away.
I think I like the 3 points on the Rams on the road. Yeah.
I don't know if I can do it, buddy.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, nothing wrong. The Rams. I mean, they're going to get better at some point, right? They're going to play better. They have to. There was something that, and I'm not saying Lombardi's savant. He said he's got nothing, no facts, but he said he wouldn't be surprised if Stafford and McVay retired at the end of the season.
Huh. Interesting.
They got their Super Bowls and they out. I don't know. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Your beloved Lions, and they get, back-to-back wins. The Lions on a roll, baby.
Yeah.
They go to the Giants this time. The Giants open as a 4-point favorite, 6.5-point total. Totals come down to 45, and it's a three-point spread for the Giants. The Giants did win last week. Covered the number, but I think it was within the original number. Maybe they wouldn't have covered, but they, what are we going to say here? A lot of people are on the Lions here, and this total came down. Is that because of weather related too?
I don't know. I don't really think that. Certainly, the snowstorm is not going to be impacting New York. Mostly off of Ontario. Yeah. I think it's just the way that the Giants play. I mean, they are a team that likes to keep the ball on the ground as well, so it's going to serve to a running clock. And I expect that they're going to be able to run a little bit on the Lions. But on the other side, the Giants' run defense is no great shakes either. And I think the Lions and Swift are going to be able to run on them. And I like the Lions at +3 in this game.
It's tough. Index says the Giants metrically, but I don't like. I mean, the number is supposed to be higher. Like I said, there's some value per the index, but index has not done so well. I'm not necessarily wed to it at this point. I could probably get more with the Lions. We should put a yellow there. I think we could consider it. I'm just more concerned that, he did win. Goff did win in sub 40-degree temperatures, but it was not that great in the Giant. He's been known to turn the ball over in crappy conditions. So we'll see. We'll see the other picks. Let's go to the next one. Jets against the Patriots. They just played like 3 weeks ago, right? And the Patriots looked dominant on the road when they played the Jets. They opened as a 3.5-point favorite, 39-point total. The total is down to 38 now. Same spread, 3.5. You tell me. I know what you're going to say. Belichick and these young quarterbacks, right? And Zach Wilson sucks. There's value here, man. The Jets are, on paper, the Jets are better than this team. I don't know what to say. I don't like the Patriots. I know that they've sort of won some games, under the radar. They're right there in the playoff hunt, but this is a battle for first place, and Miami's obviously got a claim to that too. But it's a really important game, the NFC North or NFC East.
Yeah, definitely is. I mean, you hit it last night in the last game. The Patriots did win 22-17, and Belichick has had Zach Wilson's number. But I think it's kind of curious though. If you just look at the numbers in both games, home and away, in the last game, New England closed -3 on the road at the Jets, and now we're flipping the venue here, going to New England, and the Patriots are only 3.5. What do you make of that?
I think that they're doing what I'm doing. I'm looking at the overall metrics of these teams, and to me, the Jets should be like a 2-point dog, on the road. So they're trying to give you they're not really looking at what you're saying. They're not looking at the past game that they played. They're looking purely at the metrics like I do. They're slave to the metrics here. Hey, this should be, Belichick, we'll give him an extra point. You know what I mean? So you're probably right. I mean, the Patriots, let me ask you this, and we talked about this before when we played the Bills. So, well, the Jets on the road, I mean, they haven't played great on the road. They obviously won at Green Bay. They won at Denver. I mean, how are the Patriots, are they going to score in this game? Or they just need Zach Wilson to turn the ball over so they can score?
Well, I mean, their offense, their running game offensively is good, and they're 10th ranked running the ball, and Jets defensively are 22nd against the run.
Okay.
And actually, the New England, sorry, I had that backwards. The New England running game is 22nd,
Right.
Jets defense 10th. Yeah, I had that flipped. But I think, yeah, you make a good point there. It's a good point. The Jets defense definitely has an edge in all categories, but it's the same on the other side too. New England's defense is in the top 3 in both categories, and the Jets are now without Breece Hall. Did he play in that first game?
No, he did not.
Okay.
He got hurt.
It was
He got
the
hurt.
first game without him.
Yeah, so I don't know. The number sucks though, right? I mean, 3.5.
Yeah. I don't think I could lay 3.5.
I
To
know.
be quite honest.
So we can pass. I just, be another. But again, it'll probably be a 17-14, 17-10 game, and then Patriots win again. But let's lay off.
All right. Low total. I mean, we might need to revisit it. We'll see how this goes, but low total will certainly give more value to taking the points.
Of course it does.
2.
My visitor is leaving. So, okay, here we go. Washington Commanders against the Texans. Commanders open as a 3-point favorite on the road, 40-point total. They're 3.5 in the contest, 41-point total. So here we go. I'm just like the odds makers. I'm just giving value to these Commanders. I love this team. I love them so much. 3.5 is, sorry to say it in America, it's a shitty number. It should be a 2 or 3-point favorite, right? I love their team. I think they're playing great. They should win this game. It's just a bad number, dude. They say sharps play numbers. We're supposed to play numbers, right? But it would be a contrarian play to go with Washington, I think. But I don't know. Another low total, 3.5-point favorite, right?
You think that Washington would be the contrarian side here? I feel like that this just looks like a trap for anyone trying to back the Commanders.
Admiral Akbar pick, it's a trap.
Yeah. I mean, they're coming off a huge win on Monday Night Football. The whole entire world saw them pretty much dominate the Eagles, which was the undefeated team in the league. And now they're going to Houston and they're only laying 3.5. Simple, right?
So that's when you take Lovie Smith at home.
I think so, yeah. This lines up for a classic underdog home Houston Texans, circle the wagons. The
Davis Mills is good for one great game a year, and this is the one.
It's true.
So it is 1.5 points of value in the index. Not that we followed it every week, and we probably shouldn't because it's not doing that great. But I guess you're talking me into a yellow on Houston. Let's go.
I make it 4 points on a neutral. And so if you give them any home field advantage here, then you have to be able to land on Houston at home getting over a field goal.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like I said, I'm right with you there. I said on a neutral. That's exactly what you're reading my mind here. 4 on the neutral,
Mm-hmm.
2 points. 2 points on. I mean, 2 points is a lot for Houston. Maybe it's 3 points, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're right there. We're right there. Sometimes I'm in line with DVOA at you, but sometimes I'm not. All right, here we go. So Eagles licking their wounds after kind of getting smashed a little bit on Monday night, playing the Colts. They opened as 8-point favorites, and now it's down to 6.5 in the contest. Total still stable at 44. I hear a lot of sharps on the Colts here. Action. It scares me because they've been so bad this year. Now with those defensive line injuries, with Sue coming in, maybe they can shore it up, but we know what's going to happen. Saturday's just going to run Taylor as he should. Matt Ryan, just a couple play action plays. 6.5 at home seems pretty reasonable. I love that 8, by the way. I wish that was a little higher, but you knew they weren't going to give us that in the contest. So it's Colts or pass for me, buddy. What do you say?
Yeah, definitely like the Colts too. It's telling that they made this number 6.5 because there are still some 7s in the market. I bet one today, -115, I think. And but I think it's going to continue to go down. You're seeing mostly 6.5s now, and I expect that it might continue in that direction. Could even get down to 6 or further by Sunday, because I mean this Eagles defensive line is banged up, and I think that plays right into the strengths of what the Colts want to do offensively.
What's the Colts run defense? I mean, they did get shredded by the great Derrick Henry, right? So
yeah, they did. 5th ranked defensively against the run. That is like actually the one good area that the Colts have on this team.
right.
I think the defensive tackle, the veteran whose name escapes me right now, is having a Pro Bowl caliber season, and they should be able to stop that Eagles rushing attack
You mean
and then make Hurts through.
What's that? DeForest Buckner.
Yeah, Buckner. Yes, thank you. So I like the Colts too, even at 6.5. I think it's a play.
Yeah, it's a lot of points at home. I mean, it just is. The Colts record. Actually, what's funny about them? They played terribly, but they're 4-5-1. They're not out of the mix. They got a chance.
It's true.
We still got a chance, action. That was a big win last week.
We need the Titans to drop some games here starting tonight.
Come on, Jeff Sunday. Let's go.
This game is on Sunday, too, which just plays right into Jeff Sunday's hands.
Exactly what he had it all the way. All right, so Browns go to the Bills. This is the game we just discussed that originally, so these are real numbers now, right? So they opened as 9.5-point favorites at home, 47-point total. The total came crashing to 41.5, and it's 8-point favorites for the Bills now. We'll call it at home. It's really a neutral now because it's in Detroit.
Yeah.
So the question that we had from Night Ranger was, he obviously bet the under. I don't know what number he got, but he bet the under because of this thunderstorm game. Snow game, sorry. And now it's going to be in a dome. So you got to figure the total is going to tick up, or they're going to score more points theoretically. Will he get his bet voided? And your advice was?
I mean, I would say like 90% of the books here they have house rules that game must be played in the venue that it was listed at for the bet to be action. And so it's a good chance that it's going to be voided, but I wouldn't put anything past Bet Rivers to have some like really crazy quirky rules. I opened up and checked on my site and I couldn't find the house rules in the 5-minute search that I looked. So I'm not sure about Bet Rivers, to be honest with you, but most domestic books here will be voided because of the venue change.
Right, for sure, which makes sense. It should be. So in this game, I guess venue did play into it. I mean, 8 points,
definitely
1.5-point game. That's a big spread. The Browns. I don't know what to say, man. I can't. I don't know what to expect on this team. I can't bet on the Browns, buddy. I can't do it. So I don't think I can bet on the Bills right now either. I mean, I think 8 points is too many points, even when they were at home in that lower total game. I don't know if I can back the Browns again, Val.
Well, before the venue change, this number was crashing drastically. I think opener, what do we have on here? 9.5.
Yep.
I think there was like 7.5s, maybe even 7s that were popping up before the late breaking news today.
Yep.
That was obviously due to the weather forecast, assuming that it was going to be a ground and pound game, and the Browns probably have an edge in that department. you think that the number is better now going to the indoor Ford Field on turf, where the Bills might be able to actually open up and pass on the Browns a little bit? Now we're seeing 8 in the contest.
Mm-hmm. I mean, clearly they're going to play better than they would. I mean, the thing about the Bills, I always felt even in bad weather, the offense was pretty good.
Yeah.
What I can't predict right now is the turnover factor. Allen's been turning the ball over, and it doesn't get contagious, but it gets to be a mental thing where he's just probably pressing a little bit now, especially last week with the elbow injury. I mean, the fumble, was it his mistake? I don't know. It's hard to say. That's a tough situation.
Yeah.
But the interception at the end of the game, I really didn't like. I mean, it was a meaningless play. You don't need to get that touchdown. Throw the ball away. Throw it only where your guy can get it. It's a bad decision, right? And I think that sometimes, obviously he's become not invincible, but Allen's played kind of this invincible game where he just keeps on chucking. But anyway, to answer your question, sure, there's a chance that they're going to score more points. I'm just very concerned that he's going to turn the ball over. And we've seen them 3 weeks in a row where they obviously lost 2 of the games, but they didn't cover against the Packers. So
yeah,
the bigger spreads, I got to pull back on right now.
All right. Well, I'm kind of leaning to Buffalo. I am, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, my only concern is, despite their good rushing defense numbers, the last 2 weeks they got completely gouged on the ground by Minnesota, and then I forget the opponent the week before.
Yeah, the Jets.
And so,
the Jets.
That's
Michael
right.
Carter
had
over 100 yards, which he shouldn't have. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's obviously discouraging going up against the Cleveland Browns rushing attack. That's what they want to do.
Right.
So that gives me a little pause, but I do think that the Bills are going to shred the Browns. I'm not sure in fact, this game is off my odds screen right now, so I don't even know what the new total is going to be. My first look when it gets reposted is going to be over.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're running out of picks here, but I like to stay away, dude. I just don't.
Okay.
Maybe if I don't know. We've got a couple other maybes too. I'm not feeling great about it. Not that I have like surefire ones down the stretch here, but I've got a couple other ones I like a little better.
Yeah. Looking ahead, the Bills this week presumably are going to stay here in Detroit because they play the Lions on Thursday morning.
Yeah.
And if they stick around here, that seemingly could be a smash spot there against the Lions.
Exactly. Maybe you can go see him at the casino. Oh, Josh Allen, hey, what's happening?
Throw some dice with Josh Allen.
That's right. Okay, so let's go to the next game. Carolina against the Ravens. The Ravens open as a 12.5-point favorite at home, 45-point total. It's up to 13.5, 42-point total. Woo, that's a lot of points. I do think it's credit. I think that this is probably accurate in terms of the line, but I mean, we chased some big numbers before. I don't really like Carolina on the road. They got the win last week, but the Ravens are starting to round into form, so I definitely don't want to go stack up against them. So happy to pass on this one too, actually.
Yeah, I agree. Baker Mayfield is going to be under center in this one. I think Walker picked up an injury, which led Steve Wilkes to force him into that decision. Yeah. And I think that's probably an upgrade, the way that Walker has been playing lately. And so that might give you a little value on the Panthers, but I'm with you. I have no interest in betting that side. And on the other side, Baltimore minus 13.5 is just way too big of a number. So I think it's a pass.
Any thought on the total?
I mean, 45 to 42 is a little interesting because the Baltimore Ravens defensively have not been their normal selves this year. So if anything, I would look over.
Okay, 4 o'clock window. We've got three games again. You got the Raiders against the Broncos. Broncos open as a 2.5-point favorite, 41.5-point total. Hasn't moved much. In the contest is 2.5 as well, 41-point total. Look, the Broncos offense is putrid. I can't stress it enough. Last week, I was kind of on them in terms of them against the Titans, but the defense is solid. So I know it's a weird recommendation. I'd go with the Broncos here. They're a better football team. They're going to get right against this bad Raiders off defense, right? 41-point total?
Definitely. I'm right there with you. I love the Broncos. My favorite pick this week. we saw last week the same scenario with the Colts coming to town, and they got right in a hurry against the Raiders defensively. And on the other side, this Denver Broncos defense is excellent, second ranked or third behind Dallas, and I think that they're going to be able to stop the Raiders. And so I think in this matchup, I would definitely side with the better defense.
There you go. Me too. Hey, we got one. That's why I was passing. I was trying to get to that game.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the other one. Bengals against the Steelers. Bengals were opened as a 5-point favorite on the road. 42-point total. It's down to 4. 41-point total. So here we go. This is oddsmakers, doing their job. The Bengals 2 weeks ago should have been like a 7-point favorite on the road, and now they're down to a 4. It's because T.J. Watt. So is it too big of a move? I mean, I like the Bengals prospects going forward. They're 5-4. It's a big game for them because they lost to the Steelers. Kind of a revenge spot. I mean, but are they going to be doing? What do they do? The Renegade. The Renegade is gonna be like
the terrible towels.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not a great number for the Bengals. Obviously 3 or 3.5 is better than 4. But what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, remember they week 1 this year, and Watt was out there, and I think he wreaked havoc on the Bengals, and I think single-handedly caused like 6 turnovers, if I remember.
Yep, I do remember.
Not single-handedly, but I think they got 6 turnovers, and they won 23-20. So I think that there's some sneaky value on the Bengals here. I think the move is a little bit too much. And remember, in week 1, the Bengals were still integrating brand new offensive line. And so now we're here into week 11. The Bengals are starting to gel a little bit. They are going to be without Jamar Chase again, I think. And so that is obviously another tick on that side of the ledger. But I still think that there is value back in the Bengals here. I have no expectations that the Pittsburgh Steelers offensively are going to be able to do much. And I think for that reason that the Bengals are going to cover.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, I think it's too big of a move for Watt coming back. You still have a rookie quarterback, and I do like Pickett in general. I like this young group that they're going to be better in a year or two. But I like the Bengals. I think it's a little too depressed of a line for what it should be. Because, I mean, I don't know about your power ratings action, but the Steelers are like the worst team in the league. I mean, they won last week, obviously, and they had Watt and everything. But when you look at the index, they're right with Carolina, Houston. The Raiders are down there, too, or the Rams are down there, too. So, all right.
I have Pittsburgh at 25.
Yeah, okay.
But
still bad, but not terrible. Okay, let's go to the next one. Cowboys against the Vikings. Cowboys open as a 2-point favorite on the road. Now they're 1.5 in the contest. The total is ticked from 48.5 to 47.5. I'm not sure why that happens because both these teams can score, but I don't know, dude. This is like a classic what do you believe situation. The Vikings have won, I don't know how many one-score games this year, a lot. And they've come back in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, they are, 8-1. On paper, Dallas is a better team. Defense is better. They obviously their offense has kind of ticked up lately. But Minnesota's got something this year. So I don't think they should be dogs at home. That's for damn sure. I think, I mean, I know my numbers probably say this is probably right. Let's see what I say. Yeah, well, no, I think Vikings should be favored by 0.5 point, but that's still 2 points of value on the home dog. But then again, they're gonna have a letdown right after that big game last week. But both games.
Yeah, and Dallas coming off of a tough loss in Green Bay. This one, I actually make it Dallas -3 on a neutral, and just give Minnesota probably 2.5. I would say they probably have the best home field advantage in terms of out of the entire league. And so then it should really be close to a pick 'em. So, I mean, I think it's close. The number's pretty darn close. But I just can't get past the Minnesota luck factor. And I'm gonna keep betting against them. I like Dallas in this game. I know that the pass rush didn't really do much on Sunday against the Packers, but they still have a fantastic pass rush. And I think if you get Cousins under pressure, he's a different quarterback, much like every quarterback is. And this game is also at 4:25, which is outside of Kirk Cousins' preferred window. And so I think that's another impact to this number or to this game a little bit. And then on the other side, I think that Dallas offensively is going to be able to run the ball against the Vikings. And so, I mean, they both have great running attacks. But I like Dallas.
And I understand what you're saying, and maybe it was just a game scenario situation, but last week they couldn't cover Christian Watson. I'm going to cover Jefferson, right? I mean, he's gonna light them up if they play the way they play. Now, maybe they have a better pass rush than the Bills. I thought the Bills had a good pass rush, but they didn't do anything last week. Cousins had 2 bad interceptions in that game. So I hear what you're saying, and I think I even picked. I can't remember what I picked in the blog this morning, which I didn't even promote. But I don't know, dude. It's tough. The other thing is, it's really weird. The Cowboys, with McCarthy, I mean, they obviously lost it at the Pack, but I don't know, with Dak back, it's almost like I trusted him more with Cooper Rush. You know what I mean? I think they coached him. So I kind of feel like I'd stay away in this one, dude.
I agree. I was just going to say that too. I think it's going to be a really heavily picked game, and maybe we're better off sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, cool. Perfect. Great answer. All right, here we go. So let's get into the Sunday night game. The Chiefs are going to the Chargers. Chiefs open as a 7-point favorite on the road, 50-point total. The total stayed the same, but the spread is coming out to 5.5. So I'm trying to figure this out now, Action. Is somebody coming back for the Chargers, or I know that the Chiefs have a lot of guys like Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling are in the concussion protocol. So they do have to turn to like the third, fourth guys on the receiver situation, but the Chargers are decimated, dude. I mean, I know this is kind of their last stand. They got to play better if they want to, really make the playoffs in the AFC. But I do still have the Chargers. This probably should be more like a 3-point game instead of a 4-point game, not 5.5. But I kind of feel like we should back the Chiefs here, dude. I don't think the Chargers have it in them.
I think that Keenan Allen is supposed to be back this week. So I'm reading here he's questionable hamstring. So I think that's probably one reason for the move. And I mean, the reality is that the Chiefs have had the Chargers have had the Chiefs number in the last couple of meetings. So I mean, I'm looking here, 4 out of the last 5 they've covered against Kansas City. So I think that's part of the reason why you've seen this number move down a little bit to 5.5. I don't know. The Chiefs have not. I mean, they were kind of lucky to cover last week against Jacksonville. They were giving up a lot of turnovers in that game, and Jacksonville was able to move the ball on the other side too. And so I'm not sure that I want to lay this big of a number with Kansas City on the road, especially in a divisional game. I can only look to the other side in the home dog.
Okay. I mean, that's the smart play. The divisional home dog, right? It makes sense. Chargers have been unimpressive to me. You think that so Williams isn't playing either, right?
I'm reading here that Williams is out. So
team, I don't know what it is, because he kills the Chiefs. He gets like 150 yards every time he plays against the Chiefs. Yeah. How many picks do we have here, Action? We're kind of light this week. How many times? We only have 5 games to pick from. Yeah. I don't know, dude. I don't know if I can pick against the Chiefs here.
We got a Monday night still.
Yeah, let's pass. Let's go to the Niners game.
Okay.
All right, 49ers against Arizona. Arizona, they're 8-point. They opened as 7-point dogs at home, 44-point total. Now it's 8 points with the Niners, 43.5-point total. Don't love the number, of course, but I do think the 49ers are going to crush them.
Yeah, agree.
So is 8 too much to lay?
And this game's in Mexico City.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know if we touched on that.
I forgot about that. Did I do that in my neutral? I did not.
So yeah, even more impressive, I think, in the travel. I think Arizona's played there at least once, so I know that they've done the trip before. I'm not sure about the Niners, but right. I'm with you. I think that San Francisco is going to smash them. Their offense, whether it's Murray, Colt McCoy, or QB3, I don't think any of them are going to be ready for this Niners pass rush and defensive front. And on the other side of the ball, the Niners should be able to run all over them. So
Yeah.
I like them. I like them laying 8.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right.
That's the big favorite we can trust. Where
Yeah.
were you, my survivor? We said 49ers. Um, well, that's 6 to pick from. Is that enough? Or we have
Yeah.
to go back through.
I think so. You never know. Some news. I mean, there's weather news. There's a lot of late breaking injury news this time of year. So we'll have to reconvene Saturday.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's review. We like Detroit on the road getting 3 against the Giants in the 1 o'clock window. We like the Texans getting 3.5 at home against the Commanders. We also like the Colts getting 6.5 at home against the Eagles. You see a trend there, all those home dogs. Then in the afternoon, though, we like Denver laying 2.5 at home against the Raiders. The Bengals laying 4 points at the Steelers in the 4 o'clock window. And lastly, on Monday night in Mexico City, we like the 49ers laying 8 points against Arizona. I like those picks.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, let's hope they get back on track, you know. There's a transition. So in the Circa update, we went 2 and 3 last week. Actually, we were just going back to 50%, which isn't enough to do anything here. But the only thing I can say is that the top people aren't doing that great either. So we are staying about the same distance away from them. We just got to try to make up some ground at some point. The top dog's down to 73%, still amazing, but you remember it was like 80% just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
At 36, 13, and 1. The top 100, which is actually the top 82nd, because they do ties, it's 64% at 32 and 18. So we're 6.5 picks back, not great, but I look at it, we can maybe pick a week or somewhere along the way. At least 2 out of every 3 weeks we can do that. We can get right there.
Yeah, I think we're still in the mix with a punching chance here. Just got to get hot here in the third quarter.
Get hot. Well. Okay, well, we talked about it last week. We're going to do the World Cup here, World Cup preview. Action's an ex-soccer star, so he can give you more details than I can. But, the Night Ranger couldn't join us, but he obviously has some picks that he shared with us. You want to go over kind of the general layout of the World Cup and how it works?
Yeah, the World Cup is this week? I thought it was usually in June. You sure you have the right month?
Why is that? Because it's a friggin' hot country, right?
Yeah, the FIFA conglomerate was doing some shady business, and they awarded the tournament to Qatar. And so, and then they realized that it was actually hot in the desert in the summertime, so they had to move it to the wintertime and disrupt everyone's lives, including mine and many of the soccer stars that had to just take a break in the middle of their season and travel to Qatar. So It's going to be different. I don't know how that's going to impact the players. I mean, I've heard both sides of the argument that some players are going to be in better form because it's early in their domestic seasons as opposed to playing in June during the normal cycle just after they've finished a 45, 50 game season. Right. And so I've also heard some others that say, in fact, it might be more stress on the players' legs because they've just finished the last 2 months where all the leagues crammed in more games than they would in a normal schedule. So, I mean, all in all, I think it's going to be a net neutral in terms of how it's going to impact performances across the board. Certainly, I think some players who are based more Europe and Asia and Africa are going to be suited better for this just because of the shorter travel distance.
Sure.
And so the format is 8 groups of 4 teams that play in a round robin in the group stage. And then after the group stage, there's 2 from each group that move on to the round of 16. And then from there, it's just a typical knockout stage format all the way until they crown a champion.
Right. Now we'll talk about the kind of the futures here in a moment, but soccer is a little unique because you can basically bet on 3 outcomes, right? You can actually bet on the tie, and there will be ties in the pool play. There'll be ties, right?
Yeah.
In the knockout, you have to play till extra time, and then eventually shootouts, right?
Yeah. I will though caution the listeners to be careful even when you get to the knockout stage. Typically, if you make a bet, it's going to be settled on the 90-minute play. So even if they draw at 90 minutes and you bet on, say, Germany to win, you might still lose that bet despite them going into extra time and potentially winning in extra time. You'll see usually the normal bets are settled on 90 minutes regardless of what happens in extra time. Okay. So make sure you look out for that. You either can, when you get to the knockout stage, you can make a selection to advance, and that would include everything after the 90-minute whistle. So just a word of caution there. Nice. But yes, typically you would either bet win, lose, or draw in those 90-minute formats. You also have the option, though, to look at the goal spread too, which has become more of a prominent bet here, where you can lay minus half a goal, or in some cases you might see some of the heavy favorites early on here in the tournament that might be laying a goal or even more, in some cases like 2 goals in some games.
Nice. That's a lot. So
it's a lot of goals.
A lot of goals, but you could also just do the total for the total goals as well.
Yeah. I mean, typically in most soccer matches, the average is going to be 2.5. So a lot of books will just post that number as a given, and then they'll just shade the juice. So early on here, especially in the first round of games, you see in these tournaments, a lot of teams will play really close to the vest, not extend themselves. And so it tends to be a lot lower scoring in the first round of games. So you're going to see a lot of 2.5s juiced heavy to the under, like minus 175 or 180 in some cases. Right. Some books might even lower those totals down to a total of 2 or 1.5 in some cases. You might see some opening round games that are lined at 1.5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were saying in our text chain that these early games, these first games, people come out a little tight. They don't lose the first game, so maybe not as aggressive or something, so lower scoring. You can also bet the total in the first halves as well.
Yeah, that's one of my go-to bets here in the first round of games, is to look at specifically the first half total. A lot of books will line those at 1 out of practice. So even if you get 1 to push, and you're going to see a lot of these games in the opening round that are going to be 0-0 at halftime. So my go-to bet, especially in some of these games where I know teams are going to be more defensive, is to go first half under 1.
Nice. And then you're going to do, before we get into we'll get into the picks of the teams, but you're going to do something called a Calcutta, which is kind of a unique format. It's not betting per se like a pool, but you want to explain how that.
Yeah, it's a format. There's 6 groups of us that are teams of like 6 or 8, and we've all pooled in money. And then just like we do for March Madness and other types of events, we bid on the teams, and there's a payout structure based on whether they win the group and advance to the knockout phase. And then it just escalates from there, the winner taking like 30% of the pot.
Nice. That's awesome. And then, okay, well, let's talk about some of these teams. Obviously, some of these we know they're always perennial powers and everything. You're looking and all over the place here from where they're from. But at the top of the group, you've got Brazil and Argentina and France and Spain. I guess England's up there too. Typically speaking, on these futures, you don't like to go to these lower odds teams, or I should say higher odds, better odds to win. Plus 550 is not enough, juice for you. But you do have Argentina highlighted.
Yeah, I really like Argentina this year. They're a team that has won the Cup before. Typically in World Cup, you do not see like outsiders winning these tournaments. I think there's a group of like 6 or 7 countries that have ever even won the World Cup. So Argentina is one of them, and they have Leo Messi, who is arguably the best player in the world. And right now he is playing probably the best soccer that he's played in his entire career. And so I think led by him and some young goal scoring talent that they have alongside him, they're going to be formidable in this tournament. And I bet them at plus 550.
Nice. You also noted some other ones a little further down. Portugal plus 1,600, Uruguay at plus 5,000, and a little bigger Serbia plus 9,000. Why do you like those teams?
Well, Portugal has perennially been Cristiano Ronaldo and nothing else. But this year they actually have a ton of attacking talent that are alongside him. And really, I think eventually he's going to be sent to the bench. So I like Portugal as a dark horse here, kind of like a middle of the road team. I think that their group specifically is a little bit weaker. So I like them to kind of more or less cruise through that group and make the out phase. And then Uruguay is another team that has performed well in the World Cup throughout their history, also a past winner. And they also have some stars that are a little bit aging, but I think just like Ronaldo, they're going to play more of like a substitute type of role, and they're going to lean on the youngsters in this tournament. And they finally have a goalkeeper that is going to be able to carry them too. So I also bet Uruguay 50 to 1.
The US is at plus 15,000. Are you able to make a bet that they make the knockout stage, or is
Yeah.
it only okay? You are able to do that.
Great question. Yeah, a lot of these books you can get very creative in the group stage. You can bet them to advance. You can bet them, they're called dual forecast. So you can pick the first two teams to finish in any order, kind of like an exacta box in a horse
Sure.
race.
Horse
And
race,
so I have bet a couple of those. In fact, since you asked, I bet Ingrid, the Netherlands, and Senegal to both advance at plus 125. And so I think those are some ways where you can get creative in these markets. I think I did hear that the USA is about even money to advance to the knockout phase.
Mm-hmm. Are there any groups that you've seen in your analysis that are a little more wide open? I mean, usually, obviously, I think they probably just do like a snake, putting the best teams around. But
Yeah.
so was there a team like kind of at the turn where like the 16, 17, like that range that are there at the top of that group? Is there a group that you see like that?
Yeah, actually, I'm just trying to find the letter here. The group of death that I think is kind of like an overused term is going to be Belgium, Croatia, Morocco, and Canada, Group F. And all these teams are pretty well bunched. Belgium is ranked second according to the world rankings, but I think that's way overrated.
Okay.
Croatia is 12, Morocco 22, and Canada 41.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really any of these four teams can win the group and come out and advance to the next round. I'm looking to fade both Belgium and Croatia in this tournament because both of them have very aging rosters, and I think they're a little bit past their prime. Remember, Croatia was the team that made a darling run last World Cup to finish second to France.
They were.
And I took a flyer on Morocco and Canada, both to advance out of this group at 40-1.
And that's what I'm saying. Like maybe you take in that kind of, as you said, well, just a competitive or maybe a parity group like that. You take the higher, the guys that are much higher odds. Mm-hmm. What about, we'll get to Iran in a minute, but what about the host country, Qatar? I mean, they're obviously plus 50,000 to win. Are they in a really tough group? I mean, they're not no chance to advance into because that would be exciting, of course, to host and get to the knockout phase.
Yeah, they're a tough team to handicap. They're ranked 50 in the World Cup rankings. Mm-hmm. However, most, if not all of their players are based domestically and playing in Qatar. And so there's not really much known about them. Okay. But I will tell you that every single host in the World Cup history has advanced except for one, and that was South Africa. So, I mean, looking at that, you got to think that they have a chance, certainly. But Senegal, the Netherlands are going to run away with this group. But I think Senegal is going to be a tough opponent for Qatar, which make it difficult for them.
Well, I wonder, and I know it's not the same sport, it's a lot different, but what I've seen Qatar do in beach volleyball, for example, those guys, they brought in two guys that I think they're Senegalese. They're not from Qatar, and they are basically now they're Qatari nationals, and they are quote unquote the Qatari team, and they're very good. The Sheriff, I love those guys, but I wonder if they've done that with their soccer team. You know what I mean? Maybe they got some mercenary dudes that have just kind of, hey, relocate here. Be a national, play on the World Cup team, and maybe they'll surprise. But because, like you said, I mean, they got a lot invested into this thing.
Definitely, no doubt. That's a good point. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they have some, transplants on their team.
For sure. Well, let's talk about this. You got it highlighted. Iran is, 75,000 here, plus 75 to win. There's a lot of liability there. What's the comments that we have in the chat as we're talking about that there's so much liability that they're not going to pay out, or what's happening here?
Well, Bet Rivers limits me at every turn, so it's not that surprising. I heard on a podcast, it's not my own pick, on Matchbook yesterday that Iran actually has some value in this group. Specifically, they're paired with England, USA, and Wales. And I think that USA and Wales are kind of little teams, and this Iran team is extremely well organized and ranked 20th in the FIFA World Rankings. And they almost won their group in the last World Cup in Russia until they got knocked out in like 2 last-minute goals on the final match day. And so it's more of a bet here just to get them out of the group at 750 to 1. If they advance, then I can immediately start hedging with a significant amount of leeway. Unfortunately, Bet Rivers only allowed me to bet 37 cents on this, So
Okay.
there's not a ton of value there, but I did get down some more on Iran at FanDuel at 550 to 1.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I'll just mention a couple of night ranges. He's got a lot of props going on here, which I'm sure you can play all the time
Oh yeah.
at Rivers. He's got in the Qatar Ecuador game, to score during the second half, yes, and he's got some looks like an actual player, from Qatar. So you've got the ability to obviously bet props for individual players. He also has a full-time tie. So again, as we talked about, the result in that group as a full-time tie. Forget about the extra time. Do they do extra time in the?
No extra time, and
They don't do
group
that in the
stage.
full play.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. He's got pretty good odds here in this one. So plus 225 on the full tie, plus 800 for that goal scorer. So there's many ways to bet the World Cup to make it interesting. And I know Paulie, I wish he was on because he's actually been to the World Cup. I think he's been to the Olympics and the World Cup. He's a world traveling guy. But what else? And then obviously it starts Sunday at 5 a.m. or something. It's Sunday morning, really early from what I remember.
I think the first game this Sunday is a little bit more reasonably timed, like 10 or so. They try to get it in the prime time window because it is the opening game and it's Qatar that's playing, so they moved it around so that they could kind of get the world stage. It's 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Well, that's not bad.
I think Night Range is onto something, though, with these draws. We touched on earlier in the first game how they tend to be lower scoring and more tightly contested. And so you would do worse than to look for some draws in the first round of games here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, you said they come out tight. They're figuring things out. Maybe, the conditions, they're kind of just figuring things out. Maybe sit back. And you were a soccer player. I wasn't. So different ways to play defense. They probably sit back, make them really make big runs to score, make it hard, and then maybe later. That's the only thing I like about soccer is that as the game progresses, as you get later, they get so much more aggressive at the end of the game. It's so much more fun to watch the last 10 minutes or something. It's kind of like an NBA game that way, where the things just all of a sudden just go haywire, and all of a sudden you got all these scoring chances you haven't seen it for 70 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely gets entertaining at the end of some of these games, and you can bet in-game props too, like will a goal be scored in the last 10 minutes of the game, and sometimes you could get some pretty big juicy numbers on that.
All right, so your best bets besides the futures, we could talk a little more next week as it gets further if you want. But what would be your best bets in this first week? It sounds like the first half unders or something like that, or what's your best bets?
Yeah, I mean, specifically, I'm targeting this Group B, which is England, USA, Wales, and Iran, to be extremely low scoring. So pretty much every game in this group, I'm betting under 2.5 on Iran, England. I bet Wales and USA to end in a 0-0 draw at plus 630 at FanDuel. I like Japan. I like Japan in general. I'm going to be betting them on the goal spread in the game against Germany. And then a prop that I really like is the highest goal scorer in the tournament is called the Golden Boot. And so I've targeted a young striker on Argentina because I think they're going to go far, and I think that Leo Messi is going to be able to feed him a lot of assists in this game. So I've got Lautaro Martinez of Inter Milan. He's the highest scoring player in the tournament at 29 to 1.
All right, there you go. And he's on Italy, you said?
Argentina.
Argentina. Okay, nice. Well, there you have it, everybody. The soccer, the long-awaited. It's only taken us like 4 seasons to get back to it. We talk about soccer all the time, and actually was frustrated with his picks, but it's mixing it up for us.
There you go.
Appreciate it. Well, hey, got the World Cup on Sunday. We got the NFL on Sunday. Of course, some big games. Really exciting. Next week, maybe, I don't know when we're going to rotate, but maybe we'll talk a little bit about college because there's some big matchups next week, traditional.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more on World Cup to give it a little more flavor. But so follow us at Side Action Pod on Twitter and follow us at Side Action Podcast on Instagram. Follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and on Instagram.
And follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
All right. Good luck with all these sports.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Side Action Podcast. We appreciate all of your listens and thank you for joining us. We'll see you all again next week on Thursday for some more hot picks and side action. Side Action Podcast, its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the show hosts or their guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of this podcast, and opinions between talk show hosts may conflict. Individuals following the advice given on the podcast accept their own risk of losses from wagers made, as the Side Action Podcast, its owners, hosts, associates, or guests will not guarantee any advice given. The opinions and advice given on the Side Action Podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Intro and outro and transition music credits. Song titles Jerry 5 and District 4 by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.org. Licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0. creativecommons.org/licenses/by 3.0.